This is Hatmoza with a analysis and my theory of who died at the hands of Negan in the season 6 finale, Last Day on Earth. A lot of theories are out there right now on who it might have been. I've seen people think it's Carl because of a shadow casted on Negan's chest as he swings his bat. I've heard people say Eugene, based on his moment in the show when he gave Rick his plans and the touching hug he had with Abraham. I've heard people say it was Daryl based on I don't even remember what. And then you have other theories, which in my opinion, they did a really good job kind of confusing the audience with who it might have been. It could be anyone really, and I'm not saying my theory is the right theory, but I looked at it from the point of view that was going on along the episode. And if you paid attention, you noticed that scattered throughout the episode, you had moments of a first-person view. And we later find out that that first-person view was coming from the van where Rosita, Glenn, Daryl, and Michonne were captured. So I find it hard to believe that that was not intentional. And I really have this strong hunch that we were seeing the point of view from the victim of Lucille from the very start, from the very opening moments of the show. We were seeing the first person view of the person who gets Lucille eventually at the end of the episode. So if we're going to base this theory, and I'm calling it the first person view theory, for lack of a better name, we really already cut the list down to 4 people, which is sorry, I had a low battery notification on my screen there. We cut it down to Glenn, Daryl, Michonne, and Rosita. Now, I've captured screens throughout the episodes of every instance of the first person view, and I'm going to share them here. But before I get started, I thought it was really interesting that in the episode you see Rick when he finally realizes, hey, we're kind of screwed here. The Saviors are a lot greater than I gave them credit for when I decided, hey, let's go and kill them. These guys got numbers, and they got machines and toys, as Eugene says in the episode. But Rick kind of, strangely and oddly, I can't figure this out, why Rick looked at the bullet holes in the RV. If you remember, that's when he shot the 5 wolves that Morgan let loose. And I just found that really odd and out of place. Some people who said it was Eugene that died by Lucille say that he was the person basically we saw in the first person view. And when he was looking at the holes, he was actually looking at the holes of the RV. This doesn't make sense because not only is Eugene clearly seen captured by the Saviors and on his knees the moment Rick is captured, but you also see that the first person view was coming from the black van. So we know it was a black van, and we know when Dwight pulled them out and Stephen Ogg told Dwight to take them out, chop chop, we saw the first person view one more time. So without delaying anymore, I want to go into these first person views one at a time. And at the very opening scenes, we see and they do a good job with taking the story back and forth from different points of view. They've done this in the opening episode of season 6 with the quarry, and I forget the name of the episode. But if you kind of align this perspective right here with what's going on outside, you hear the Savior's whistling. So we know this is the point where Rick and the group just got caught. Because if you watch this episode again, you see the opening, you hear the whistling and the lights flash. That's why out of all the first-person views, with the exception of when the person gets Lucille, this is kind of the most blurry because the lights, in my opinion, were just turned on, flashed on, right when Rick and the group got captured. So, moving on to the next, and this was about 17 minutes into the episode, excluding commercials. We see it a little bit more clear. Again, I can see how some people confuse this for the RV, but later on in the episode, you see it's a black van. So the Eugene theory, it's kind of out of the window. And if we're sticking with the first-person view theory, it cuts the list down to just the 4 people that were captured by Dwight in the previous episode. All right, so something happened here. Okay, but anyways, I'm continuing. This kind of changed my opinion later on because you see in the next first-person view that there is somebody in front of this person. And I'll tell you who I think it is later. And if you look at this hand, and if we're assuming this is the hand of the person that's looking out the holes through the back of the van, some would argue, I know I was talking to my brother and he said, well, that's something Daryl does, put his hands and wave and cover his eyes from the light. That could be true, but later we're going to see that Daryl's kind of banged up and he's leaning against the side of the van. And in this, whoever's eyes we're looking through right now, they're not necessarily leaning on the side of the van. They're kind of centered and at a distance, which I'll get into in a little bit. All right. And this is right before Dwight opens the door, you can see, and I didn't see this the first time I watched the episode, the second or the third, probably the third time I watched the episode. You can see somebody's head, and the screen cap is not that great, but you can see somebody's head right here in this area right here, and I'll just mark that right there. You see somebody's head, and it becomes clear when the door opens, and when the door opens, you can see in my opinion, it looks like Rosita's head. The hair is not, you can tell Michonne has a very distinct hairstyle with her, I forget what they're called. And the hair is I know the reflection kind of doesn't, it really plays with the color, but it's not black. Like Glenn's hair is black. And this is kind of lighter, browner. And again, maybe the lighting's kind of tricking us here. So I'm assuming that's Rosita. So if we're going by the theory that the person that we're looking through the eyes of the person that got killed by Negan, we can eliminate Rosita if that's Rosita. Again, we're going to go through this and kind of eliminate. Later on, we're going to see that there's somebody else right here, and you can kind of see them right there. And in the next image I'm going to show, you can see it's somebody leaning on the side of the van, and we can see that Daryl is the one leaning, and he's banged up. I really doubt he was the one putting his hands up and looking through the holes. He's too injured to be moving. Plus, we didn't see any blood on the hands in the earlier pictures. So, again, I'm trying to eliminate whose eyes were we seeing through. Next to him is Michonne. And again, she's kind of leaning to the side. And in my opinion, she's one of the. I have two main suspects, or that I think are the victims of Lucille. I've kind of eliminated Daryl based on the fact he is shot and he's leaning against the side, and I really don't think the first-person view is coming from him. I don't think he'll be making those kind of movements. I didn't see the blood on the hands in the previous first-person view moments. And Michonne is right next to him. Again, I still can't eliminate her because the head we saw earlier doesn't have the locks. And the hair is either Glenn's or Rosita's. So at this point, Michonne is the number one person I would pick as the victim of Lucille. But that changes in a moment because the order now, we see Daryl first. He's injured, leaning against the van door and kind of in the corner there. And then you have Michonne. And next, in the center of the van, you have Rosita. And that's why I'm assuming whoever the first-person view person is was looking at Rosita's head. So whoever's eyes we were seeing through had to be behind Rosita. And that person is Glenn. He's the last person to be dragged out of the van. All right, so that's all I really have. I'm not basing this on my opinion. I tried to use evidence from the episode itself. I did toy around with the ideal that maybe we can figure it out by the eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Maybe by the positioning of the van, the trees, and the editors did an amazing job. They made it to the point where it was really impossible to figure out who it was based on those. But again, if there's a theory we can lean on the most, I think it's by following the first-person view, because you see later on, and again, here's a picture of Daryl's bloody hand, so that's why I don't think earlier when we saw somebody putting their hands up in the van, I don't think it was Daryl because he had blood on his hands and he's too injured to move. But anyways, going on, you see the first-person view more as the eeny, meeny, miny, mo is going on by Negan. By the way, it was an awesome moment by Negan, in my opinion. You see the first and the second time, and then you see people in the background, and you see what I presume to be the van, and I'm not going to go into that. And then when you finally get the moment where Negan crushes one of our survivor's skull, it's in the first-person view. So I don't think it was coincidence. I really think there was a meaning behind the first-person view, and I really think that the person that they were showing throughout the episode in first-person view was the person that got Lucille here. I have strong reason to believe that. And if we go by that theory, and we go, well, review the things I mentioned, the hand not being bloody so it can't be Daryl. There was a head in front of the person that kind of looked like Rosita. The two remaining people that could have been the victim are Glenn and Michonne. But since Michonne was kind of leaning on the side of the van and wasn't really behind Rosita, that kind of leaves Glenn as the number one, person to been the first-person view throughout the episode. Anyways, that was my analysis. If you want more, let me know in the comments. I'd love giving my opinion. I don't have the best recording equipment, but if I get enough people that enjoy my thoughts and my analyses, I would probably work better on improving my videos, both in audio and visual quality, and probably rehearsing more when I do that. But thank you. Let me know what you think.